Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts, they've been worshipped as gods, hunted as demons, and adored as companions. From ancient temples to modern warships, from royal courts to the White House, cats have quietly prowled through the pages of history, graceful, mysterious, and often more influential than their owners realized. This is the story of history's most famous cats, the felines who purred their way into legend, art, politics, and even war. We finish our history brief with a return to the Conversation series vault and an excerpt from a conversation with Adam Zamoyski. A quick word from our sponsors. This day in history. On February 4th, 1789, United States Electoral College convened for the first time, unanimously electing George Washington as the nation's first president. On February 4th, 1945, Allied leaders Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin met at the Yalta Conference. Their decisions would shape the post-war world and laid the groundwork for the Cold War. Story of the day. Let's start with some divine cats of Egypt. Long before Garfield and Grumpy Cat, there was Bastet, the ancient Egyptian goddess of home, fertility, and protection. Depicted as a sleek woman with the head of a domestic cat, Bastet symbolized both maternal warmth and fierce defense. By 1000 BCE, cats in Egypt had gone from wild hunters to sacred members of the household, protected by law. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was a crime punishable by death. When a family cat died, Egyptians shaved their eyebrows in mourning and had their animal mummified, wrapped in linen, and buried with honors. Thousands of cat mummies have been unearthed in temples dedicated to Bastet, showing how deeply these animals were woven into Egyptian life. But reverence for cats wasn't just spiritual, it was practical. Cats kept granaries free of mice and snakes, making them indispensable in an agrarian society. In time, they became symbols of balance and divinity, and their images adorned everything from jewelry to sarcophagi. Even centuries later, the Greeks and Romans marveled at Egypt's cat cults, proof that long before the internet, cats had already conquered civilization. But not all eras were so kind to cats. During the Middle Ages, for example, superstition transformed these sleek creatures from protectors into omens of evil. Black cats in particular were associated with witches and the devil. In the 13th century Europe, Pope Gregory IX even issued a papal decree linking cats to heresy, a decision that would lead to widespread persecution. Ironically, the killing of cats may have worsened the Black Death, as the rat populations exploded unchecked across the continent. And even amid fear and superstition, some cats still managed to find some royal favor. Cardinal Richelieu, France's powerful 17th century statesman, famously kept 14 cats in his residence. He referred to them as his true confidants, and after his death, they were provided for in his will. Louis XV kept a pampered white cat that roamed freely through the gilded halls of Versailles, while Marie Antoinette, legend has it at least, planned to send her 6 beloved Angora cats to America before her capture. They never made the journey, by the way, but descendants of those same cats are said to have inspired the Maine Coon breed. Across the channel, British royalty was equally smitten. Queen Victoria adored her blue Persian cats, which helped popularize the breed in Britain. During her reign, cats began to shift from barnyard animals to beloved household pets, reflecting the sentimental values of the Victorian age. From feared familiars to royal confidants, cats were reclaiming their throne. By the time the industrial age set sail, cats went to sea. On ships, they weren't just mascots, they were essential crew members. You see, every vessel, from merchant to naval destroyers, carried a ship's cat, whose primary duty was simple but vital: to control vermin that threatened food supplies and rope. But some of these nautical cats became outright legends. Take Unsinkable Sam, perhaps the most famous feline of World War II. Originally named Oscar, he served aboard the German battleship Bismarck when it was sunk by the British in 1941. Miraculously, Oscar survived, clinging to a piece of wreckage until he was rescued by the British destroyer HMS Cossack. Then, in a twist of fate, Cossack was torpedoed months later, and again, Oscar survived. He was transferred to another ship, the HMS Ark Royal, which was also sunk. And once again, the cat survived. After 3 shipwrecks, the British Navy decided that he'd had enough adventure and retired him to a sailor's home in Gibraltar. They renamed him Unsinkable Sam. By the war's end, Sam had survived both sides of the conflict, a symbol perhaps of feline luck and resilience. But back on land, cats were padding their way into the halls of government. Few world leaders could resist their charm. Abraham Lincoln, known for his compassion, adored cats. During his presidency, Secretary of State William Seward once gave him 2 kittens. Lincoln reportedly fed them at the dinner table, remarking, "Dixie is smarter than my entire cabinet." A century later, President John F. Kennedy and First Lady Jackie had a gray cat named Tom Kitten, though the feline kept a low profile at the White House. But the real political feline legend belonged to Socks, the black and white cat of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Adopted in Arkansas, Socks became an international celebrity in the 1990s, featured on Christmas cards, children's books, and even the White House website. He had his own fan mail and was often photographed lounging in the Oval Office or sitting proudly behind the presidential podium. To millions of Americans, Socks wasn't just a pet, he was the first cat. And while Clinton years came to an end, Socks' memory still evokes a rare kind of nostalgia, a reminder that even in the most serious quarters of power, a cat can soften the edges. Of course, cats have also left indelible marks on art, literature, and pop culture as well. Charles Dickens, for example, kept a cat named Bob, who upon his death was immortalized by having one of its paws turned into a letter opener, because Dickens apparently missed the cat's helpful tendency to paw at his writing desk? I don't know, a little odd on that one. Ernest Hemingway, however, a hard-drinking American author, famously shared his Key West home with dozens of 6-toed cats, descendants of one given to him by a ship's captain. To this day, the Hemingway house remains home to nearly 60 polydactyl cats, each considered living history. Artists, too, found muses in feline form. Leonardo da Vinci sketched cats with scientific precision, calling them a masterpiece of nature. Pablo Picasso painted them as symbols of sensuality and mischief. And T.S. Eliot's whimsical book, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, would later inspire one of the longest-running Broadway musicals of all time. You guessed it, Cats. Even scientists had their share of cat companions. Isaac Newton is credited with inventing the cat flap so that his feline could come and go without interrupting his experiments. Whether that one is a myth or truth, it's kind of a story that suits both man and beast. Brilliant, eccentric, and quietly domestic. By the 20th and 21st centuries, cats had gone from royal courts to pop culture icons. In 1928, Felix the Cat became one of the first animated superstars, predating even Mickey Mouse and appearing on cinema screens across the world. Then during World War II, Winston Churchill's cat Nelson sat beside him in war meetings, unbothered by the fate of nations being decided overhead. Churchill once scolded his staff for disturbing the cat, saying, "Nelson has precedence over all of you." And when Prime Minister Winston Churchill passed away, the cat stood guard by his casket. In modern times, cats became internet royalty. We have Grumpy Cat, with her perpetually frowning expression, who became a viral sensation in the 2010s. And then there's Larry, the chief mouser of the Cabinet Office in the UK, who continues a centuries-long British tradition, officially residing at 10 Downing Street, where he greets journalists, ignores prime ministers, and occasionally attacks visiting dogs. See? Even in the digital age, cats remain what they've always been: mysterious, aloof, and somehow always in charge. The History Brief. The following is an excerpt from a past conversation with historian of European history and Napoleon, Adam Zamoyski. Search for the full episode of the History Shorts conversation series wherever you are listening to this show. How do you think Napoleon's influence is most misunderstood today?
It's always very difficult, this question of Napoleon, because I think the fundamental thing is that very few people point out or have any idea or have any sense that he was essentially a well-meaning, beneficent man. His main, there was ambition because ambition is another thing, but his main motive in taking power was, first of all, if he hadn't, then he would have been probably dealt with himself because somebody else would have taken. It was that kind of a situation. But what he really, having taken power, his primary motive was to reorganize the French state and then later all the areas that he had conquered or that he somehow dominated, to reorganize them in a way that would create a better administered place with less waste, less corruption, fewer stupid rules, to organize it in such a way that it would be wealthier, more efficient, and it would grow, and in which everybody had an equal chance and everybody would have a better life. And that really was his instinct. It was fundamentally beneficent. And that's something that is forgotten about because people always look at his faults and particularly his uncouth explosions of anger and ill will.
Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping to make this little show such a mighty success. If you're enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both links can be found on my website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.